Hello, Morris Bainer, Technical Director at ecoMaster with you once again, and today we want to talk about French doors. So here's a set here. Maybe you've got some of these at your home and you may have discovered how difficult they can be to draft proof. How are they different from single doors? Well, obviously they've got a join down the middle and you've got two parts to draft proof at the bottom instead of one, which kind of limits what you can do at the bottom of the doors. But it's more complicated than that because sometimes they open inwards, sometimes they open outwards, and there's a range of different threshold treatments at the bottom. So yes, they can be quite difficult to treat, but no longer, because now we've got draft dodgers for French doors, and they come in two varieties, one for sill type thresholds and another for butt type thresholds. So no matter what kind of French doors you have, now we've got you covered. When considering to install your draft dodgers for French doors kit, think about doing it in this sequence. Firstly, fit the draft dodgers for doors onto the door jamb. Secondly, treat the center. And lastly, treat the bottom of the doors. Let's take a look now at the components that you're going to find inside your draft dodgers for French doors sill kit. Today I'm going to show you a white painted set, but of course they also come in raw timber with brown seals. The first thing is of course a fitting packer that's going to help you fit the draft dodgers in exactly the right position on the door jamb. Secondly, you'll find 3 timber mouldings with 3 seals, and that is the draft dodgers for doors one door set. So one of these goes on the head and the other 2 go on either side of the door set. You're going to find some other components tacked onto these as well. So here's one, an EMV length that's going to be used for the center of the door. As well as that, there is a compressive seal, self-adhesive compressive seal, that is used on the bottom of the threshold if the doors are inward opening. If the doors are outward opening, we don't use that. The other thing you're going to find in your draft dodgers for French doors sill kit are 2 draft excluders for the bottom of the doors. Again, if the doors open inwards, they're going to go on the inside, and if the doors open outwards, they're going to go on the outside. Let's take a look now at the components you're going to find inside your draft dodgers for French doors butt threshold kit. Firstly, you're going to find a draft dodgers fitting packer, and that's going to help you fit the draft dodgers in exactly the right position around the door jamb. Secondly, you're going to find some draft dodgers. This is draft dodgers for doors single door kit. It comprises 3 mouldings and 3 seals, 1 for the head and 1 for each side of the door. Also on there you're going to find an EMV seal, and that's going to be used down the center of the doors. Finally, you're going to find 2 sections of draft dodgers fitted with brush seal, and they're going to go on the bottom of the doors to seal it to the butt threshold. Before installing your draft dodgers for French doors kit, you're going to need to get some things ready. Firstly, you're going to need a way to clean thoroughly the door jamb and any other places that the components go. Secondly, you're going to need a measuring tape and a pencil so that you can measure and mark the draft dodgers to length. And you're also going to need a miter box and a saw with a sharp blade so that you can cut them nicely. Finally, you're going to need a pair of scissors in order to cut the seals to length. Here are a couple more things to consider before you start fitting your draft dodgers for French doors kit. Firstly, the draft dodgers that fit on the head are not always straightforward. Sometimes French doors don't quite line up at the top. It's quite common, and so you might want to think about cutting the draft dodgers in 2 across the head so that they seal both doors correctly. Another thing that you might want to think about before fitting your draft dodgers for French doors kit is this. If your bottom treatment is going on the inside, you might find a face-mounted bolt like this on the inactive door. Well, that just means that the bottom treatment for this side has to go in two pieces. Now of course this piece is quite small, and so you might think about screw fixing that piece on so that there's no chance that it's going to come off. Okay, so it's time to fit the centre seal to your French doors. I've cut a small sample of the EMV in order to figure out where to fit them. So in this case we could fit it on the inactive door on the inside, on the inactive door on the outside, or on the active door inside or outside. The thing I like to do is actually to fit it on the inactive door, because then it's kind of out of the way, it doesn't actually open into the room. And I like to fit it on the inside because then you can actually see that it's making a seal when the door is closed. Now if you want to test, just cut a small piece of the EMV, take the liner off, and then untack the glue a little bit by just putting it on a piece of cloth, or in this case my sleeve, so that it's not quite as tacky as it normally would be, and then have a go at fitting it where you think it's going to go. Now notice that I've put it over the latch plate as well. We're probably going to need to cut just where the latch is, but it's going to be okay for the actual lock. So this way we're going to get pretty much a continuous seal the whole length of the door. Now let's see if the door closes. Now that you've decided where to put it, the next step is to do a thorough clean. Now maybe you've got a microfiber cloth and some soap. I've got alcohol wipes, and so I'm going to now clean this area thoroughly so that we can get maximum adhesion from our EMV. Well, we're ready now to fit the EMV down the centre of the door. We've decided where we're going to put it, and we've cleaned that thoroughly. Also, we've already fitted the draft dodges to the door, so we're good to go now. We always start by square cutting the EMV carefully. The next thing is prepare it by bending it in the V that it's going to be. Just run your fingers through the whole thing so that it's bent, and there's no mistake about the orientation. Well, we know it's going this way and the other door is going to press it like this. So let's just start at the top by taking out the liner. It can be a little hard to start, but there you go. And very carefully position it to start. Line it up where you want it, and just carefully pull the liner out and tack it on gently. Now we're going to come down over the latch plate, and then we're going to need to trim where the latch actually latches. We'll come back and do that with a knife. It's just much easier to go over in one piece. When you get towards the bottom, just trim off with your scissors to about the right length, square cut, and just trim off a little bit until you're there. I might just trim off just a touch more. There we go. So the idea of just tacking on lightly is if you need to reposition, you can. But once we press it on hard, there's going to be no moving it. So the next part is to press out the adhesive. The fitting packer is a good device for that. Just run it up, press in pretty hard. Now we do need to trim off here where the latch comes through, because otherwise it's going to bind on the back of the EMV. Just with a sharp knife. There we go. And now the latch can just go straight through. Well, the last thing to do to the French doors is to fit the treatment to the bottom of the doors. Now these sweep seals are quite good, but they do need to make onto something. And if we just fit these here, they don't really make onto anything. So that's why we have this seal. And normally we would fit this vertically because we don't expect to find this timber moulding here. So it would go vertically on the edge of the threshold. But in this case we do have this moulding here, so we're going to just put it flat on the moulding. Put it over here. Of course it's going to go all the way along, but just to make sure that our seal is going to have something to make onto, there it is. It's quite a positive action. You can see that the seal makes pretty well onto the weather strip that's on the moulding. So that's what we're going to do. The first part, of course, as always, is to clean thoroughly where all the components are going to go. So along the top of this moulding and the bottom of the door. Well, we've done a thorough clean both on this surface where we're going to put the weather stripping and on this surface where we're going to fit the Draught excluder. So let's put the weather stripping down first. We always start with a square cut on the end. Tack down at the beginning. Hold it carefully in place and pull out the liner just a little bit at a time. Tack down. When you get to an obstruction, like this bolt, just grab your scissors, trim off, and then start again on the other side. Remember, as always, to press out. The fitting packer is a good device for that. Just press firmly. Now we're ready to measure and cut the Draught excluders to size. So we're just going to come to the centre so that the Draught excluders just meet nicely with a little bit of a gap, just a tiny gap in the middle. We're going to measure. Here, we're going to measure up to the bolt. And then we're going to measure on this side. Well, we've cut our Draught excluders, including the small piece that goes just here next to the bolt. But when you cut a small piece, there's nothing to secure the rubber blade to that piece. So we need to do that ourselves. And here's how to do it. Grab yourself your fitting packer, put on the floor, position the rubber in the piece. Now get yourself a number 2 Phillips screwdriver like this. It's just a typical Phillips screwdriver. And just position it like this. There we go. And then very carefully with a hammer, just give it a firm tap. And that punches the aluminium in and secures the blade. And the front looks just fine. Okay, well, we're ready to fit the first Draught excluder. So we're just going to position it on the door. And just draw a little pencil mark along where it's going to fit. Now let's start by taking some of the liner off and putting the Draught excluder back on the door. and lining up with our pencil mark. There it is there. Just press on. And of course, if you're happy with that, press it on very firmly. So let's see how that works. I think that's pretty good. Okay, let's do the rest. Well, there we have it, a pretty well draft-proofed set of French doors. We've put the draft dodgers on the outside to treat the top and the sides. We've got the EMV down the centre doing a great job there. And now we've got the sweep seals, a combination of the sweep seals and the weather strip on the sill type threshold to seal the bottom of the doors as well. I think that's a job well done.